Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my March 2021 page 112 tag. The page 112 tag was started by Sean the Book Maniac, based off of a French literary prize wherein they comprised the long list solely by reading page 112 of the books in contention. So with page 112 of novels, I believe it is, you don't have any context, you only can go by the strength of the writing on that one page. And I'm doing a specific iteration of this. Actually, I guess this marks a year because I started last April and I've been doing one a month, so I guess it's my 12th. But anyway, I am using this tag to clear my physical shelves of unread books. I have this handy dandy books and cats mug with all of the titles of my unread books that are physically owned inside. I pick 3 at random and then read page 112 from each of them and then decide which one is the one I want to add to my month's TBR. All of that being said, I've also gotten into the habit every 4 months of doing a special sort of page 112 tag where I take the runners-up from the past 3 months and pit those 3 against each other, because why not? It also helps me with post-production in these videos because I've already done all the work on all of the past clips that I'll be inserting. So without further ado, let's go back in time. I'm fine. It's just, I don't know. Ugh. What is it? I don't know. You can tell me. God, Adam, I snapped. This sucks. I'm all by myself. Completely alone, everywhere I go. He reached for my hand. Don't say that. You have me. I'm right here. I don't have you, though. I have this lousy boyfriend who doesn't give 2 shits about me because he's too busy with this fucking lumber deal. Maybe it'll be over soon, Adam said carefully. It wasn't the first time I had complained about Evan's devotion to his work. It can't last forever. I mean, Jesus, the way he talks about it, it's like the universe revolves around this fucking middle-of-nowhere Canadian lumber company, Pacific West Corp. It's so important. They're gonna make so much money off of it. They're gonna be rich and famous. You know, I can't remember the last time he even asked me how my day was, how work was, none of it. He's an asshole. He doesn't think about anybody but himself. I was ranting, but I couldn't help myself. Abby and Jake, Henry and Eleanor, I couldn't complain about any of them, so my anger funneled toward Evan instead. Westcorp Timber is going to make the Spire more money than any deal on Wall Street. I imitated Evan's voice in a snide tone. People's heads are going to turn. Him and Michael Casey at the top of their fucking world. Fuck all of it. The lights of Manhattan glittered up ahead. We were zooming across the bridge, the East River rippling below us like black velvet. It's disgusting, I added. The torrent wouldn't stop. It's so fucking arrogant. He's saying this trade is foolproof. It's like they didn't even notice what's been happening, how fucked up everything is, how screwed up the rest of us are. I guess you could tell I enjoyed this one too. I got into the rant a bit. I think I have an inner potty mouth that liked, some of that dialogue, although I was remembering I have my own character in my novella who says fuck a lot, and the people in my writing group kept on telling me to scale it back, and woo! There was a lot just in that one page, more than I have in most of my pages anymore. But anyway, anything with that much anger and frustration and resentment is just, compelling drama to read. It was primarily dialogue, but when it did come to some narrative scene setting, I liked how they talked about racing over the river. I really did like that. It was a little confusing at first. I assumed at first that the man she was talking to her was her boyfriend, but I probably would have known better if I'd read the previous pages, and she quickly, explained that away within this page. So I really, I like this, I'm a fan of drama. I believe this is about a couple trying to make it in New York, and so we can see, some of the schisms between them, that, she's feeling isolated and alone, and he's putting himself into his work. Although, interestingly enough, there seems to be a hint in here that other things are bothering her as well, but she can't talk about those things, I guess, with the guy she's talking to, and so she's kind of, heaping too much on her boyfriend instead. So that is intriguing as well. So, again, there's a lot in this. But it helps to be reminded why this is important. why Orthodox Judaism enriches lives, why rabbis can catalyze a lifelong impact in a way a professor cannot. And, to make the deal a bit sweeter, now and again you encounter exceptional thinkers who stand out, who make the whole thing worthwhile. He stood, moved to his glass bookcase. I've accumulated along my journey a wonderful assortment of books that collect dust, unappreciated as they are by most students. Unfortunately, until now, there's really only been one student who gave a damn about such things. I suspect, however, you might be the second. Leibniz, Spencer, Locke, Chaucer, Hobbes, Rousseau. I blinked in awe, thinking of my own sparse collection. Do you happen to know that student, Mr. Eden? I picked at my fingernails. It's Evan. We're quite fortunate to have an astonishing number of impressive minds here at the Academy. Top standardized scores, elite college acceptances, wonderful future graduate school and employment outcomes, all of which we track meticulously. But it's very easy for students, in the moment, to get caught up purely in their studies and their extracurricular commitments and their applications. It's rare to see someone take an active interest in a broader scope of things during their high school years. My point, really, is that I think you might be interested in finding intellectual companionship in Mr. Stark. In fact, you two might well discover considerable overlap in your interests. Yeah, I don't think Evan would be too intrigued or flattered by that proposal. Rabbi Bloom gave a soft smile. Probably not, at least to start. But my unsolicited advice would be to avoid taking his detachment, let's call it, too seriously. He has a way of opening up eventually, once he's comfortable. I thought of Evan flinging his naked body from a rooftop. That hasn't been my impression. The year is yet young. You might be surprised how things change, and I'd know, to speak candidly, Mr. Stark isn't particularly delighted with me at the moment, and from what I hear about today's events, I don't think I'm especially pleased with him either. But I also know this is temporary. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strength in this. The dialogue in particular, I just feel like it had a great flow, a great back and forth between the rabbi and the main character. That being said, I'm coming into the page 112 tag with bias that, the original award isn't supposed to have, because I know a lot about this book already. I mean, I was itching to read it very recently. That's why I asked for it as a gift very recently. It's gotten a lot of buzz very recently as well. It came out very recently. I should stop saying very recently. I know this is a book about Orthodox boys in an academic institution. It's a very different sort of orthodoxy than I'm usually reading about. It's also caught the attention of the non-Jewish community, which I'm also very intrigued about. And I know a bit about the main character and his relationship with this enigmatic figure, Evan, who already I could tell, like, if he's jumping naked off of rooftops, I guess that's our first page 112 introduction to that personality. So I'm not sure. I feel like I wonder if I have some bias when it comes to this page 112 because I already know some stuff about it. But I do think the writing is strong. One day they were getting ready for the Disney dance, and Anita was bowing her head like she was praying, and Tommy Boy was squaring his shoulders, pulling at the chin of this mask, positioning it over and over, his nervous tick. There was a lull in her line of customers. 3 large families were shuffling over to Brittany, Bethany, and Brianna. Denise decided to straighten out and bundle her bills, which were piling up. It had been a busy day. All of those bills had to be face up, and the heads of Washington, Lincoln, or whoever had to be pointing up and down the same way. When she got them all organized, she'd take a little key from underneath the money tray, unlock the drawer below the register, take out the canvas See First bank bag, deposit the bundle of money, zip it back up, and put it back in the drawer and lock it and put back the key. Usually she had this down to a 1-minute routine, but that time she couldn't find the little key. Jimmy was distracting her, hanging over the counter and punching the buttons on ye old cash register. They had to use old-timey brass contraptions, like everyone stuffing their faces with pizza in front of a giant organ with big dancing rodents was quaint as hell. So she was sweeping her hand underneath the cash carrier, only getting paper clips and rubber bands and personal checks with those different designs on them, scenery and ducks and shit. Some teenage boys came up to the register while she was rifling around this way, hoping Mr. Mancy wasn't looking at her clutching that big wad of cash. And the teenagers were all ordering at once, and she said, "1 moment, please," and they kept on ordering. They said, "Give me the orangutan," like it was a big joke instead of just the menu. They turned to each other and said, "Give me the king of the jungle," and hooted like morons. Denise said, "I'll be right with you," and they sang, "Take me out and let's ball, babe," tossing crumpled up flyers onto the half-prepared pizzas of the pizza boys, who snorted and laughed. Okay, so I feel like there's a lot going on here, although it's kind of a lot of nothing. It's interesting, like, because, you know, reading this a couple of times, you get the gist of what it is that you don't get immediately in the beginning, that Denise is working at a pizza place. And apparently there's an old-timey cash register they have to use that doesn't jive with the gestalt of the rest of the place. But meanwhile, the major action seems to be that she's having a tough day and that she's trying to do several things at once. She has annoying customers coming up to her. She has to, you know, deposit the wad of money into a particular location, but she can't find the key, and yada yada. There's a couple too many run-on sentences, I think. It's kind of hard to keep the rhythm up. And it's interesting just how much minutia there is that, you know, on its surface it's just not all that important to go through all those steps and get all those little details about things. But it's kind of a nice scene setting in a way, and you kind of get a sense of her voice through, you know, the cursing or the, you know, casual tone or whatever. And she's obviously very frazzled, so I feel for her. Whoosh, 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 and I'm back in March, hopefully nearing the end of winter and perhaps coronavirus, at least in terms of the last 3 months. We'll be closer to the end and vaccines, and okay, anyway. To recap, my December book was The Futures by Anna Petoniak. My January book was The Orchard by David Hopen. And my February book was Home Everywhere by Megan McNamara. And I gotta say, out of the 3 of these books, this one continues to be the one that interests me the most. It's more than just that page, although I think that page is very compelling. You know, it's a tease page, really, where you have, you know, the promise that the main character is going to go get involved with a precocious, perhaps dickish classmate and get up to things in a Bildungsroman sort of way. But even beyond that, I mean, I've just been hyping myself up about this book because it's been relatively popular in some of the circles that I'm in, well, specifically the Liberty Hardy circle of anyway. But I am not going to be reading this book this month because I've more or less decided I want to read it for the Maybe Midrash Readathon in May, which is a readathon that Steve, Donahue, and Jason and Felicia started last year. Maybe they'll do again this year. They challenged us to read a book of fiction and a book of nonfiction having to do with any religion, and I figured this really would fit the bill for a very Jewish heavy fiction book. And then I also decided to add this one as my nonfiction book. This is Time and Difference in Rabbinic Judaism by Sarit Katan-Gribetz, which I just hauled in my recent February book haul. So yeah, I'm thinking that these 2 I'm going to be putting aside until May. So that leaves us for March with this book, The Futures, and this book, Home Everywhere. And here's what I think. I think I liked The Futures. I thought that it was really fun to read and had a really strong dialogue voice that I feel like I got into the acting when I read that clip back a couple months ago. But that being said, that's really all there was to this, and it was confusing because we're just in the middle of someone's ranting and it's hard to get a sense of what she's ranting about. And, you know, that's partially, you know, a downfall of the page 112 tag because you don't have the context of who any of these people are from the beginning of the book. But I just felt like overall it was sort of shallow in that way, that we get some angry dialogue and a little bit of narrative to set a scene, but not much else. Whereas with Home Everywhere, I feel like we got the whole package. We got some dialogue to introduce us to characters and to the emotional setting of the scene. We also got a lot of physical scene setting about the restaurant or the takeout place or what have you, and about the main characters or this character's job in that place. So it really, I felt like, drew a complete picture. Very lucky for that to happen on page 112, but I found it very intriguing, and I think I'm going to be going ahead and figuring out what else is happening in this book this month. So that about covers it for me now. You can find links to the Goodreads pages for all 3 of these books linked down below. I also like to use this outro as a chance to highlight another TBR game, because I kind of view this as a TBR game of sorts, and TBR games have become kind of big on BookTube. I think especially in YA, but also in adult BookTube. And anyway, the one I'm looking at to highlight this month is Cassidy Washburn's Jeopardy, which is loosely based off of Jeopardy. I would feel like, actually basing something out of Jeopardy might be to have somebody else write prompts. Then you have to guess which book they're talking about, I guess. But that's not really how she does things in her game. She has each row is a genre, and so she spins a die to pick one of those genres, and then she spins it again to pick which of the cards underneath that she'll choose a prompt from. But she does have double Jeopardy prompts where she has to pick then 2 books for that one prompt. So, what do you know? And I will link her videos down below. I hope to be back in a few days to do my weekly Friday Reads video. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.